Carl Jung noticed something genuinely unsettling about people with high empathy. Most of society has been conditioned to view empaths as soft, compliant, and infinitely patient creatures. There is this prevailing belief that they are designed to absorb pain, that you can hurt them repeatedly, and they will simply metabolize that trauma and offer you forgiveness in return. It seems as though they exist solely to weather the storm of other people's mistakes and to justify cruelty with understanding. But Jung came to the exact opposite conclusion. Through his observations of the human psyche, he discovered that the empath, or the individual with highly developed feeling function, has the potential to become the most dangerous personality type you will ever encounter, provided you cross one single, critical line. This line is almost always invisible. Most people never see it until it is far too late. And the terrifying part is that when this line is finally breached, there is no screaming match. There is no explosion of rage. There is no dramatic revenge plot or public scandal. You will not be fought with. You will not be negotiated with. You will simply be deleted. Empaths do not need revenge because their primary weapon is not aggression, it is absolute emotional cessation. They do not destroy you externally. They simply cease to acknowledge your existence internally. They close a door in their mind that, once shut, disappears into the wall as if it never existed in the first place. But this begs the question, what is the specific mechanism that triggers this irreversible event? What creates a situation where a person capable of enduring incredible amounts of pain suddenly decides, with cold precision, that you are no longer a part of their reality? Jung did not use the pop psychology term super empath, but in his exploration of archetypes, he described this specific nature clearly. These are not merely people who feel deeply. That is a superficial understanding. They are observers. They are constantly scanning and processing their environment on a frequency that is inaccessible to the majority of the population. While you are speaking, they are listening to the cadence of your voice, but they are also reading the micro-movements of your facial muscles. They are detecting the slight dissonance between the words you choose and the intention radiating from you. They notice the shadow that passes over your eyes when you think no one is looking. They see how you behave when you believe you are anonymous. They connect the dots between your stated values and your actual actions, often spanning months or even years of observation. They feel the tension in a room before a single word is spoken. In essence, they are walking, breathing lie detectors. But their most dangerous trait, and the one that leads narcissists and manipulators into a fatal trap, is their patience. They rarely expose you immediately. When they catch you in a lie, they do not point a finger and demand a confession. They do not cause a scene. Instead, they file the information away. They remember. They analyze. They correlate. They give you the rope, not to hang yourself, but to see if you will use it to pull yourself out of the hole or to bind them tighter. They offer you the benefit of the doubt, holding on to a sincere hope that they are wrong about you. They want to believe that you are better than the data suggests. This patience creates a false sense of security for the manipulator. You begin to feel invincible. You start to believe that your mask is perfect, that your charm is working, that this person is naive and easily led. You think you are getting away with it because there is no punishment, no pushback. You think you can continue to play your roles and pull your strings indefinitely, but this is a profound illusion. While you are celebrating your successful manipulation, a dossier is being compiled in the empath's consciousness. Every lie is carefully time-stamped and archived. Every broken promise is recorded. Every subtle attempt to distort their perception is noted as a threat indicator. They do not forget emotional wounds. They treat them as data points. They are building a comprehensive psychological profile of who you actually are versus who you pretend to be. For a long time, the empath acts as a mirror, reflecting your potential back to you, trying to help you become the person you claim to be. They absorb your jagged edges, thinking they can heal them. But there is a tipping point, a moment of saturation. This happens when the empath stops viewing you as a flawed human being who makes mistakes and starts viewing you as a systemic pattern of destruction. The transition is internal and silent. It usually occurs when the accumulation of data becomes undeniable, when the shadow aspect of the empath's psyche, the part that deals with self-preservation and cold reality, steps forward and overrides the persona of the caregiver. This is often triggered by the specific act of betrayal involving their reality testing, when you not only lie to them but try to make them doubt their own sanity for seeing the lie. When this internal boundary is finally crossed, the mechanism of the door slam is engaged. It is a defense protocol that is absolute. It happens without warning because the warning signs were ignored for months. It happens without explanation because, by this point, the empath realizes that you are incapable of hearing the explanation. And it happens without the possibility of return. To understand why this is so final, you have to understand what the empath values most. It is not kindness, and it is not even loyalty. It is authenticity. For an empath, the ultimate form of violence is not physical aggression. It is the conscious distortion of truth. It is the invalidation of their intuition. When you attack their perception of reality, you are not just annoying them. You are threatening their psychological survival. This is why the reaction is so severe. The super empath lives on a different emotional frequency, while the average person surfs the surface of social interaction. The empath is diving in the deep waters. Where others might miss the subtle signs of disrespect, the empath feels them as physical blows. They notice the incongruence of a smile that doesn't reach the eyes. They hear the hidden aggression in a joke. They feel the weight of the silence where an apology should be. They do not see isolated incidents. They see the architecture of your character. And yet, they wait. They wait because they understand human frailty. They know that everyone has a shadow. Everyone has bad days. Everyone carries trauma. So they extend grace. They extend it to a fault. This is often where the empath gets hurt the most, in the gap between what they see and what they hope for. But do not mistake this grace for blindness. Do not mistake their silence for ignorance. All this time, while you thought you were outsmarting them, they were simply gathering enough evidence to overturn the verdict of their own heart. They were waiting until the reality of your toxicity outweighed their hope for your redemption. And once that scale tips, the person you knew, the one who was warm, accessible, and endlessly understanding, dies. In their place stands something else entirely, something ancient and unmovable, a force that no longer cares about your excuses, your tears, or your promises. You are about to witness the cold side of the sun. Now, we must address the specific nature of the fatal error that makes return impossible. It is rarely a single insult or a moment of anger. It is not a misunderstanding. It is the systematic dismantling of trust through the invalidation of reality. In psychological terms, you begin to attack the most sacred territory of the empath, their internal sense of truth. You force them to doubt what they clearly perceive. You call them too sensitive when they accurately detect a lie. You invalidate their emotions as if they hold no weight. You deny the obvious, even when they are holding the evidence in their hands. You exploit their capacity for understanding and forgiveness, using it as a weapon against them, not once, but repeatedly. The fatal mistake is this: you mistake their patience for weakness. You mistake their softness for vulnerability. You mistake their silence for agreement. You believe they will stay because they feel too deeply to leave, because their attachment is too strong. But this is where you fundamentally misunderstand the architecture of the empath's mind. Jung, in his clinical practice, emphasized that Gaslighting, the attempt to make someone question their own sanity, is one of the most destructive forms of psychological violence. It is not merely lying, it is an attempt to remove a person's anchor to the real world. It is the slow erasure of their internal compass. For an empath, intuition is not just a feeling, it is the foundation of their identity. It is how they navigate the world. When you methodically attack this foundation, the empath does not process this as a relationship issue. They process it as an existential threat. Understanding these hidden psychological dynamics is the only way to protect yourself from them. If you are recognizing these patterns in your own life, or if you seek to arm yourself with the knowledge to navigate the shadow side of human nature, make sure you are subscribed to this channel. We are dedicated to exploring the truths that most are too afraid to speak, and you will not want to miss what comes next. Because what comes next in the empath's mind is the awakening of the shadow. Before the door slams, there is a period of intense internal warfare. The empath resists the truth. They give you chance after chance. They look for the light in you, even as you show them only darkness. They literally turn themselves inside out trying to justify your behavior. They construct versions of reality in their mind where your actions are less malicious than they truly are. They explain away your cruelty as stress, as trauma, as fatigue. In essence, the empath begins to gaslight themselves. They do this to preserve the connection, to avoid the pain of accepting that the person they believed in does not exist. They minimize their own suffering. They swallow their own intuition. But the dossier continues to grow. The patterns become stark, bold, and undeniable. The person claims they want to change, yet they sabotage every opportunity for growth. They swear they value honesty, yet they are caught in small, pointless lies daily. When the empath tries to address these inconsistencies, the manipulator flips the script, twisting facts, changing meanings, and making the empath feel guilty for simply asking the question. This cycle repeats until the empath reaches a state of cognitive dissonance that is no longer sustainable. Staying becomes more painful than leaving. This is the moment of transformation. Jung described this as the integration of the shadow. The shadow contains the repressed parts of the personality, the capacity for coldness, for absolute boundaries, for necessary destruction. Usually, empaths suppress this side. They do not want to cause harm. It is easier for them to suffer than to make others uncomfortable. But when trust is betrayed systematically, the shadow wakes up. It does not create drama. It does not scream. It simply takes the wheel. The empath stops protecting your feelings and starts protecting their reality. They realize that to keep you in their life, they would have to betray their own perception, ignore their internal alarms, and lie to themselves every single day. And suddenly, that price is too high to pay. Now, let's look at what happens the moment that door finally shuts. This is often the most confusing part for the person on the other side. They expect a fight. They expect tears. Instead, they get silence. But it is not the silence of the silent treatment, which is a manipulative tactic designed to punish. This is the silence of a vacant room. The empath has left the building. The person who crossed the line almost always tries to return. They will come back with apologies, with sudden epiphanies, with promises that this time it will be different. But they will find that the empath they are speaking to is no longer the person they knew. The warmth is gone. The eagerness to understand is gone. The emotional investment has evaporated. The empath answers politely, perhaps, but briefly. There is no energy behind the words. You are speaking to a shell because the spirit of the relationship has already been grieved, buried, and mourned while you were still playing your games. And then comes the inevitable question, often asked with genuine bewilderment. I thought you were an empath. I thought you were kind. I thought you forgave people. Here lies the final, most powerful lesson. The super empath has forgiven you, but forgiveness is an internal act of releasing poison. It is not an external invitation to drink it again. Forgiveness means they no longer wish you harm. Reconciliation means they trust you again. These are two completely different universes. The empath has forgiven you, but they have also outgrown you. They have realized that your presence requires them to shrink, and they are done shrinking. The consequences for the manipulator are severe, not because the empath is punishing them, but because they become irrelevant. This is the ultimate shift in power. You go from being the center of their emotional world to being a ghost. You simply do not matter anymore. Your words don't land. Your guilt trips don't work. Your attempts to provoke a reaction fall into a void. Jung wrote that hate is not the opposite of love. Power is not the opposite of submission. The opposite of love is indifference. And when a super empath hits the stage of indifference, there is no coming back. You cannot unring a bell, and you cannot unsee the truth. Once the empath sees the machinery behind your mask, the selfishness, the calculation, the lack of empathy, they cannot force themselves to unsee it. They cannot go back to sleep. The illusion is shattered, and an empath cannot love an illusion once they know it is false. This door slam is not an act of cruelty. It is an act of supreme self-respect. It is the moment the empath chooses their own sanity over your comfort. It is the moment they decide that being alone is infinitely safer than being with someone who makes them feel alone. They have integrated their shadow. They have learned that having a big heart does not mean being a doormat. They have learned that boundaries are the distance at which they can love you and love themselves simultaneously, and sometimes that distance is infinity. So, the super empath wins. Not by destroying you, not by exposing you, but by removing their light from your life. They take their energy, their support, and their deep capacity for love, and they direct it elsewhere, usually towards themselves and the people who actually know how to cherish it. They walk away lighter, stronger, and more whole than they have ever been, leaving you with the only thing you truly offered them: nothing. I have a personal question for you to consider as we close. Have you ever felt this internal click, that specific, terrifying, and liberating moment where you stopped trying to save the bond and started saving yourself? If you have experienced this door slam, or if you are currently gathering the strength to do it, share your story in the comments below. Your experience might be the exact validation someone else needs to read right now to know they aren't the crazy one. Thank you for watching. And remember, protect your peace. It is the most expensive thing you own.